The Vegan Rabbit Hole is Insane by oompaville. I had no interest in this, but I saw in my analytics that a lot of you guys are interested in this and are watching this. So I watched it, and there's a lot.
Today we're talking about a PSYOP. Not just any PSYOP, one that you've maybe never considered is actually a PSYOP.
So whether he actually thinks vegan advocacy is a PSYOP or not, it's not super clear. He goes back and forth. And unfortunately, this is one of those creators, one of those videos where they can just say, hey, the whole thing was a joke, man, right? Like anything they say, they can just say, oh, it's all just a joke. I'm just being goofy. I don't really care.
50% facetious, by the way. We're positing. This is what these videos are all about.
Or I'm just asking questions, you know. But he does make some arguments later for it actually being a PSYOP. So I guess he does really think that. We'll get to that later.
And by the way, I do not hate vegans. I just don't like them. Just kidding. No, it's truly just a joke. I'm not one of those guys. But hospital admissions in England due to vitamin and mineral deficiencies seem to have surged in recent years, according to some very reliable headlines. This is an extremely reliable news source.
I like that he admits that, but then later goes back to this point, seems to agree with it.
Meat happens to be delicious, succulent, and quite nutritionally dense in iron and folate.
Menstruating women in general are at a higher risk for iron deficiency and iron deficiency anemia, particularly for those with heavier/longer periods, right? You lose more blood, you lose more iron. Really important to eat enough iron-rich plant foods along with vitamin C to help absorption. And then the other one is folate, which I find very hard to believe that would be linked to veganism, given that the best sources for folate tend to be plants. And to be clear, the article says nothing about vegetarianism or veganism. If anything, they link this rise in nutrient deficiencies to lack of access to healthy food. It's just too expensive. They talk about poverty and fast foods, how fast foods are cheap and convenient. And yeah, fast foods typically not super vegan.
I halfway believe that promoting vegan influencers and the poorly planned diets that a lot of them peddle could be some kind of deliberate attempt to weaken people, or it's an unintended consequence of people just doing things for money, it seems like. I really don't know.
Okay, number one, that's from Everyday Health, which I don't believe is a vegan source, but okay. Number two, what's wrong with this exactly? 50% of your plate, fruits and non-starchy vegetables, 25% non-meat protein, 25% carbs. What is the issue there? This is another problem with his video. He does not elaborate on things at all. You would think he would, given it's 32 minutes long, but he just says things. This is why I didn't take the time to go through his video and write out notes, because he obviously doesn't take the time to think through these things. He just sits down and records. So that's what I'm going to do. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with this other than that it's pretty bare bones, right? 25% carbs. Ideally, you would want whole grain carbs, not refined carbs. No mention of supplements like B12, which every vegan needs. Calcium. You might need some calcium fortified plant milk or something. There are other better vegan plates from like vegan dietitians, but yeah, this isn't. Again, what's the problem here?
Over the last decade, the vegan movement has witnessed a fairly significant escalation in the intensity and frequency of activism, or at least what is made visible to the public through social media, through sharing social media. The militant activism and militant veganism and the protection of animals, PETA, I mean, they started off, I'm pretty sure, as a terrorist cell.
There's a difference between how you're identified by the government and what you actually are, but okay. Again, another example of not providing any evidence. He just says that there's been an increase in the intensity and frequency of vegan activism, protesting. It'd be nice to have some data on that. It could be true. I don't know, but you know, you shouldn't just say things like that. It's also unclear what he means by intense activism, because he shows all different forms, and some of what he shows is like pretty peaceful. It might be disruptive, yes, but it's peaceful.
This is a peaceful protest. It does look peaceful. See, these people look very peaceful.
So it kind of comes across to me that he just doesn't like protesting at all because he doesn't agree with the message, right? I think most people hold that view as well. People are willing to tolerate more things if they agree with the message. He also makes a point that this sort of protesting, again, like I guess all vegan protesting, is ineffective. It just makes people mad.
The militant activist tactics. It is a huge subject of debate, and it doesn't do any good. In my opinion, it makes me dislike people because it's irrational.
Which is a little annoying coming from someone who is not interested in veganism. Why are you giving us advice, sir? But also, of course, he provides no evidence for this whatsoever. While we don't have a whole lot of evidence on vegan activism specifically, because there just is so little of it, there are so few vegans and animal rights activists, we do have a good amount on advocacy and protesting in general. And he is right that people tend to respond more positively to peaceful protesting than they do to violent protesting. But again, he's just lumping all this protesting together. Just because a protest is annoying doesn't mean it's violent. And even within peaceful disruptive protesting, there's a spectrum, I think, right? You can argue that, who's that girl I talked about recently? And she went to a restaurant, was screaming about pigs. It was just very, very loud. It wasn't violent, but it wasn't exactly peaceful either. And the context of people being with their families eating dinner, I just personally seriously doubt something like that is very effective, at least right now when people are so anti-veganism and so pro-meat. And time is going to change things as well. Everyone talks about a tipping point. There's going to be a tipping point where there are more people who are pro-veganism, or at the very least, very anti-factory farming. And I think you are going to see more peaceful protesting like this, people standing in the street with signs, and it's going to be viewed more positively. It's going to be viewed by more people as necessary. So much on how people view protesting is not coming from a place of reason. It's coming from a place of they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear that something they're doing is wrong and hurts other creatures or hurts other people, and they don't want to be inconvenienced. Just to be clear, I do not agree with violent protesting.
I feel like this is something that everyone goes through for a short period of time and then grows out of. Is that bad that I feel like that's something they're going to grow out of?
Unfortunately, that's true. A lot of young people, especially who stay vegan, they do grow out of it. I don't know why he's limiting it to people who are off the internet.
You're not making money off the internet from being vegan. The level of discipline that is required. 1%er of 1%er of 1%er can actually do it. People who are very intelligent and deserve nothing but respect can do it in real life, off camera.
The vast majority, I would say, of vegan influencers, vegan YouTubers are no longer vegan. I don't think it's as insanely hard as he presents it, but yeah, it is a thing that you have to do. You have to look at labels and sometimes say no to foods, and sometimes social situations are awkward. No one wants to be the weird guy. So yeah, it's just a lot easier in that sense to eat animal products.
I have 5 friends who have done that exact same thing in just slightly different ways. And I love them, by the way, and they're very rational people. I'm not trying to shit on them. It's just, it is important to admit certain things that feel important are just fads. They're just fads. It's nothing more than just wanting to feel a certain way at a certain time, and that just kind of helps you.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean the core concept is a fad in the sense that it's meaningless. And it does kind of make me laugh. So often these sorts of people talk about all of the vegans in their life and how they do this. And every time I'm just like, how do you know that many vegans? I live in Portland, Oregon, one of the most vegan cities in the United States, possibly in the world. I know some vegan people, but that's because we tried to meet vegan people, went to vegan meetups and stuff. Where are these people finding all of these vegans?
They frequently conduct raids on meatworks across multiple Australian states, and they demonstrate levels of organization and coordination previously unseen in the activist movement. Look at them. Oh my lord. No evil can last forever.
Look at them. There's not that many though. It seems like he's trying to present this as scary, we're such a threat and there's so many, but no, there are not. And they're just standing there blocking traffic.
Farmers, in particular, are feeling the vegan PSYOP more than ever.
Farming and meat organisations have met with counter-terrorism police in response to the growth of the movement.
I think this is a good time to talk about the difference between legality and morality. To me and to most vegans, it is immoral to treat animals this way. When vegans are going to these farms and removing animals, they are not removing property. They are removing sentient beings.
I feel pretty confident that if we don't take her out right now, she is going to die. We have repeatedly reported criminal animal cruelty at Petaluma Poultry, and law enforcement have repeatedly failed to act. And we know that they aren't going to help her, so we will.
And part of the reason for doing this, the brave individuals who do this, is to challenge the law. I get it's a touchy thing, and I do sympathize with the farmers because they've probably grown up doing this. They are told by society that it's okay what they're doing, and it's actually amazing what they're doing because they're providing food for people. It's really easy to lie to ourselves and, convince ourselves that the animals' lives aren't really that bad. What was that farmer who said he could tell when he looked into the goat's eyes that the goat was giving him the okay? Like, yeah, you can slaughter me. It's cool, man. We're still cool. And this is their livelihood. This is how they make their money. So I am sympathetic. It's an atrocity what's happening. And sometimes countering atrocities means making people uncomfortable and even doing things that are currently illegal. I will say it's going to be interesting because this is really the first time in history that we have so much video evidence of things, and written things too. He posts on social media and whatnot. There's no doubt that the future, not the near future, but the future is going to be more vegan friendly and more anti-factory farming especially. It's going to be really interesting because of course you're going to have people trying to rewrite history. Oh yeah, I was always against factory farming. I was always pro plant-based and animal rights. And then you go back to their Twitter feed and you're like, really? You called vegans the R word back in 2017. Like, you sure about that? You have an entire video calling veganism a PSYOP, painting all protesting as violent. You sure about that?
I believe it is a PSYOP, by the way, to usher in lab-grown meat. I don't think that anyone would ever want to eat meat grown in a lab. And I think that a lot of people becoming really angry and vegan is a great way to force the average consumer to just do that.
Number one, depending on how the question is asked, people are actually fairly positive toward cultured or cultivated meat. Lab grown is kind of the worst way to frame it because it makes it sound unnatural and bad for you. But what do you think people 100 years ago would say about some of the foods we eat? And like, oh my God, what? No one would ever want to eat that. And yet we do. So that's kind of a silly argument. And then again, just the surface level knowledge, like he knows lab grown meat exists and that's basically it. He obviously has not taken the time, probably doesn't care to read from people who are pro-cultivated meat and find out why it could be a good thing for animals and humanity. It's a lot easier and more fun for a video, of course, to just say, no, it's a PSYOP.
If you're completely detached from the process of life and death, and you think non-ironically that meat comes from the grocery store, or at least you thought that until you were 25, then you have no right to consume living things, in my opinion. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but you just don't have like a right to, it's just purely a privilege, which you should be able to enjoy. I mean, you're a first world country, whatever, but it makes sense though. It makes sense. I feel like I'm schizo right now, dude. Feel bad for the schizophrenic people I just called out. Sorry about that, schizo friends. Sorry about that. Had a little bit of that at one point, pre-drum. Not really though, turns out something else. Anyways.
I kind of get what he's saying there. You should face your food, before you take on such a violent action. Yeah, that would be nice. Maybe more people would decide not to do it, but the end result is the same. Whether you truly understand what that animal has gone through or not, if you're still deciding to purchase meat, you're still purchasing meat.
Farmers report feeling threatened by vegan activists who invade their land and disrupt their operations.
Where is this from exactly? There's no source or anything. I'm guessing he doesn't have links in the description. No, of course not.
The National Farmers Federation in Australia, for example, has criticized activist maps that expose factory farms. The implication is that if you give crazy, insane people who are willing to make lists and maps of locations of something that is as innocuous as just making food for the masses.
Innocuous as making food. I mean, that kind of says it all right there. And he makes a comment later on criticizing Dominion for being misleading because, yes, some farms are bad, but most are not.
Everyone's like, watch Dominion, watch Dominion. And it's just like a snuff film of factory farms, which is absolutely not representative of the farming.
Good timing, given that Kurt's Gazette, my last video, I talked about their recent video. They talk about factory farming and how no, most of these animals are reared in horrible conditions, torture camps, they call it. You have to be willfully blind, I think, to believe that most animal farming is fine or just not that bad.
What if there was a large subset of people who thought you shouldn't drink water? And then the vegan activists, the water activists, the fucking spice activists, I don't know, what's some kind of water joke, made maps of all the reservoirs and water sources around America. That probably would be really scary.
So poisoning water reservoirs is similar to disrupting traffic and rescuing pigs and chickens from torture camps. Okay.
Dr. Tyler Patus, this guy, a research fellow, I like to call them, a research fellow. He argues that such extreme methods as vandalism and intimidation may be counterproductive to the movement's goals. Hey man, no fucking shit. It's a diet that y'all are pretending has... He also says that
that's portrayed as a joke, but kind of says everything right there. He really can't finish that sentence without saying something like, animals don't matter.
Given how pervasive meat eating is in the culture, and given the strong anti-vegan sentiment that I found both in the United States and here in Australia, I was hoping he was Australian, I think it's very easy for people to dismiss vegans as crazy, self-righteous social justice warriors that don't need to be taken seriously. This guy legitimately just encapsulated 85% of all vegans into one sentence and just destroyed them and splattered them all over the floor. 85% of them. Seriously, it's like a lot. It's a lot. That's what it is. It's not a diet. It's not about actually making change. It's just about virtue, feeling virtuous in a moment and just feeling like you're better than other people because you feel bad.
Is that what he said? What? That is not what I got from that statement at all. And if you go down to the following paragraph, his point is just that we should be careful with our protesting because people are already so anti-vegan. He's not saying that most vegans don't care and we're just doing it to be virtuous. What?
That's the PSYOP part, I feel like, right? Like if you're giving people this thing, this vessel that they're probably not eating very healthy diets because they're spending all their time being disobedient. That's probably like, it's a lot of effort to be a vegan.
It's a PSYOP because you want people to protest because then they don't have time to make healthy, like balanced vegan meals. So then they get sick and weak. What? It's all just a joke, guys. He's just asking questions.
Plant-based eating in general is growing more and more popular, which I think is pretty cool. In the UK, it has increased by 10% in the last year, which is great. Those are vegetarian options, vegan options across the board. A lot of these things seem guilt-free, harm-free, or whatever, but they're not. Anytime you're making anything, you're also killing shit. You have to like acknowledge that and just kind of recognize that that's just nature. You're a part of nature.
Why do people always think we're vegans are just like, what? What? Harvesting plants kills animals too? Yeah, guys, we know. It's an issue of degree, right? The idea is to reduce the amount of suffering, to reduce the amount of harm you are supporting. And there's no question more animals are harmed via meat and dairy and eggs than beans and grains and nuts and seeds, fruits and vegetables. And it's going to be harder to try to reduce the amount of animals killed via plant harvesting when we are still so focused and so okay with eating cow and pig and chicken and fish. Who's really going to care about the mice harmed via plant harvesting when we're killing how many cows a year? It's just not a serious argument. I would love to see fewer animals harmed for the food I eat, but there is something else right now that is a million times worse. So yeah, we're going to focus our efforts on that.
But then you've got people pretending to be vegan and then they're actually not. There's a lot of that too. There's a lot of that. That is also an absolute reality. Vegans sneak shit.
This is actually one of the things that makes studying veganism and vegetarianism so difficult, is that people will say they're vegetarian and vegan, but then when you drill down, when you actually ask them, like, when was the last time you had meat? Oh, I had some meat a week ago. Oh, okay. I was just reading a study, I can't remember which one, but they made sure that they excluded people who were obviously still eating meat, like admitting, like, yeah, I'm vegetarian. Yeah, I eat meat. That's important for studies, right? Particularly when we're trying to study like health and vegetarianism, veganism. I don't think it's so important on a personal, individual level. Now, if someone is saying they're vegan and then secretly really struggling and like sneaking food or something, obviously there's a problem there and hopefully they can get help for that. But someone saying, yeah, I'm vegan, but you ask them more and they're like, oh, actually, sometimes I eat cheese or whatever. Like, who cares? Any reduction is meaningful. And sometimes using that word and identifying as something, even if you aren't like 100% that thing, can still be helpful.
Since we've got the media and celebrities involved, that is another token in the PSYOP book. I'm just saying, people who are famous and get paid to say things and act and do things and perform and stuff, they're bought and sold, just like politicians.
So Joaquin Phoenix is vegan because he's being paid to be vegan. Somehow I don't think he made much, if any, money from narrating Dominion. I could be wrong. If he comes out endorsing some product, almond milk or whatever, then yeah, you can say, okay, he's probably making a lot of money to promote this product. There's a chance he doesn't actually even like almond milk, you know, like that's fine. Be skeptical, of course. But I think Billie Eilish is vegan because she believes it's right to be vegan. I don't think her success hinges on her veganism. I'm pretty sure she has an amazing voice and is a very talented performer.
Governments are also now promoting plant-based eating. Why? That's worrying.
Okay, so he says governments are promoting plant-based eating, and yet what he shares are just representatives asking President Biden, encouraging him to continue expanding plant-based food options at federal facilities, including government buildings, military bases, national parks, and more. And to be clear, this is not veganism. He's like equating the two, plant-based and veganism, throughout the video, but there's no ethics discussion here. You can see the whole reason for encouraging Biden here is for health, human health. And it's also very weird to criticize the government for maybe possibly encouraging plant-based foods and not mention the government ties to the animal agriculture industry. Okay.
So we've got subsidies for plant-based innovation, money from big ticket donors.
The actual graphic here is not saying what he's saying, right? He's talking about the government putting so much money into plant food, and yet this is talking about the gap, exactly what I said, the gap between animal agriculture and plant agriculture. Since 1995, livestock and seafood producers have received over $59 billion in subsidies. In contrast, for the past few decades, the USDA has allocated a tiny fraction of that amount, only $124 million, to support plant-based proteins and alternatives. This indirect support keeps production costs low for meat and dairy producers, a benefit not extended to the producers of plant-based alternatives. To be clear, $59 billion is 475, almost 476 times more money than 124 million. I just wanted to say that because it's really hard once these numbers get so large. It's like 59 billion, 124 million, like it's not that much more, is it? Oh, no. It's a whole lot more.
Public awareness campaigns, the government's getting involved, school programs encouraging plant-based meals, institutional support for a plant-based diet, not specifically veganism, but a plant-based diet. It makes you wonder which side the PSYOP is coming from.
No, it really doesn't. As he admitted himself, I can't remember the exact words he used, but the evidence is overwhelming in favor of a plant-based diet.
Vegans are they're definitely right about the diet, for sure. They're absolutely correct about that. And it is impossible to argue with.
It's unsurprising that governments, which have been recommending diets for the masses for decades, it's unsurprising that they would start moving toward promoting more plants and fewer animal products. That seems pretty rational to me, and the more likely reason versus there's like something sinister going on. And again, animal ag, the lobbying groups they have, the amount of money they have to lobby. Why are you even talking about veganism? It's weird.
We have a lot of animals and we have a lot of money in this, and man, you been screaming with that bullhorn talking about eating broccoli, oh country boy, you're gonna get your ass whooped. Is it a PSYOP from that side that's inadvertently paying money, Operation Northwood style, shooting down Cuban friendlies? Is it that? Is it, let's bolster the crazy vegan activists because they're all crazy and oompaville will make a video about it? Or is it the government who wants people to be weak and docile, all right? Who wants people to be, and then after they take away our meat, they're going to take away our guns? Or is it just, a genuine change that is the antithesis of like Western consumerism? Because that also could be viewed as a PSYOP, but it's like more reasonable.
Or it's none of those things. There's no reason to believe the government wants us to be weak. There's no reason to believe that animal ag is propping up vegan protesters and paying for them to make vegans look stupid. No, what they're paying for is dietitians to promote their stuff, right? A lot of money comes from animal ag to like the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, money to politicians as well. Very similar to the processed food, kind of candy industry, Coca-Cola and all of that, drug industry as well, big pharma. They pay a lot more money to certain individuals to paint a certain picture of their industry so they can make more money. But again, I think more and more governments are promoting plant-based because it's obvious that it's healthy. It's obvious that animal products aren't that great for us, especially the amounts most people eat.
Same with the Impossible Burger. It's just nasty. It's Burger King. Like, what do you expect? Oh, by the way, if you think eating a plant-based alternative from either one of those places is going to make any kind of difference ethically, you're dumb as fuck. Maybe in your health, potentially, but like if you think that's activism or a part of your activism, you are a dumbass. Legitimately. Like, seriously. They don't care. They're just trying to get your money.
So it doesn't matter that they're just in it for money? Yeah, of course. We understand that Burger King is just trying to make money and they think something like the Impossible Burger is going to be really popular and make them more money. Yes, we know that. The point is that by buying these products, we are sending the message that they are popular and hey, they can make you money. So keep making them. And maybe one day they'll make more of the plant-based stuff and less of the meat-based stuff. It's not necessarily activism. I wouldn't consider it activism, but to say that it has no meaning or no effect is
dumb as fuck. Spinach is ripe with folate, but folic acid, 5-MHTF, methyl hype, you need methionine and you need an alternate form of folate.
Oh, he's talking about the active form of folate. It's 5-methyltetrafolate. That doesn't make sense. I know what he's talking about. It's the active form. It's become kind of a thing in alternative circles. There are some people who believe that you can't actually get enough folate from plants because you need the active form. Like our body's not good at converting the folic acid we get from foods into the active form. That I don't know what it is about alternative medicine, alternative nutrition. They're just obsessed with you can't actually get nutrients from plants because the nutrients from plants are just no good. In any event, you don't get a lot of active folate from meat either. The best source is supplement. And most people just don't need that. You just eat plants and you will very likely get enough folate. I don't know why he's saying meat is a great source. It's not.
And also, if you have to get shots of vitamin B because of your diet, I feel like that's pretty bad as well. Like, that seems bad.
There's no vitamin B. There are B vitamins. I think he means vitamin B12. Most people don't have to get shots to get enough B12. There are some people have issues with intrinsic factor that helps you actually get the B12, in which case you would want to get a shot instead of ingesting it orally. But for most people, just taking a B12 supplement is fine.
There's enough information here, definitely, to know to be careful. And if you are going to eat vegan, actually genuinely eat vegan, or just eat vegan most of the time and have like some kind of big salmon fillet once a month, once a week, something, a big steak, once a week, just something a little bit extra.
So number one, he's sharing these things that are specific to vegan children, being careful feeding kids a vegan diet, which I 100% agree with. But then he's talking about it generally, just in general, that it's like really hard for adult vegans, and that's not really what experts are saying. And also just eat a steak once a week, and that's going to make you significantly healthier. Where's the evidence for that? And also, I think you can argue that it would make you less healthy, possibly, right? If you are vegan, but you have that steak at the end of every week or fish or something, and you think, oh yeah, that's taking care of my B12, you could very likely become deficient in B12. Steak once a week is not going to cut it. You're still going to want to supplement.
There's always an agenda. There's always a PSYOP, no matter what, especially when you're talking about consuming things and buying things. I don't think food was ever intended in nature to be a part of your value system. I really don't think it is. I don't think it's healthy. I think it's really stupid.
It just goes back and forth. I don't know what he actually believes, but yeah, sure, nature did not intend, there's no nature, but yeah, it's not natural, I suppose, to attach a value system to what you eat. Sure, but that's just a fallacy. Just because something is unnatural doesn't mean it's bad. People are smart and people do unnatural things because they're good, actually, right? Unlike other animals, we can question that sort of thing. And many people have questioned the way we treat animals. And to be clear, the way we treat animals is not natural either. Factory farming, there's not much natural about that. So if you're going to make that argument, maybe stop eating like 99% of the animal products produced. Okay, he ends sharing this, could veganism be linked to demonic forces? Again, I assume he's joking, but I don't really know.
This all could be one big poop feast.
One big what? Poop feast? Puff piece? I don't know what he was trying to say there.
Killing animals is wrong! And then some people are like, but killing animals is good, and I need to make a lot of money from it. And then there's most of everyone who's ever existed ever, and they're just like, what'd you say? I just like spending time with my family, scrolling TikTok.
Another fallacy, if that's his argument, just because a lot of people don't agree with veganism or carnivore, that was the two extremes he was positing, doesn't mean that veganism or carnivoreism is wrong or stupid. And he kind of alludes to like, not every vegan being militant or whatever, of course, spends a little time on that. But yeah, it is frustrating when there are so many animal rights advocates and philosophers who have been thinking and talking about this stuff for decades, and they're like very serious people, and worth listening to. And of course, someone like this is just going to focus on vegan booty. And you guys are weird and annoying, and I don't like it, so just be normal. I haven't watched a video like that in a while, so I forget that most people don't really have any arguments against veganism. He presented none except folate. Several times he was pretty pro, at least like plant-based diets.
Meat consumption is still incredibly high and absolutely needs to be substantially low.
He made no argument against the ethics of veganism or animal welfare. He mostly just talked about, militant vegans, and that was pretty all over the place. I just forget that most people haven't really thought about these issues, and they haven't really engaged with them, and they haven't read from, serious people talking about these things. So when they do decide to talk about it, when they do decide to make a video, it's just like, what? Sir, you really don't know anything about this. Like maybe talk about other things. Anyway, that's probably going to be a pretty long one. I've been sitting here for a while, but I hope you did enjoy it. I would love to know your thoughts, and of course, like, subscribe, hit the bell, all that stuff. Thank you so much to my members and my patrons at patreon.com/unnaturalvegan. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. I do post 2 exclusive videos a month for tier 2 members and patrons. I do a vlog and then a controversial topic. Anyway, that's it for me. New video soon. I'm very green today because I thought that this would maybe be published on Monday on St. Patty's Day. Probably not now that I said it. Do they still do the pinching kids in school? I mentioned that to my 8-year-old and they were like, what? I was like, yeah, you got to wear green or you get pinched. what? I always hated that. And I can remember at least 2 times where I was wearing green and I got pinched. One time I had green shoes on, like very obvious, got pinched. Another time I had like a green shirt on or something, and I think I had a jacket on so they couldn't see it, but like I was wearing green. Such a stupid thing. Who started that? Don't touch me.